Welcome to the Speak Your Success podcast. What's going on, family? What's happening? I hope everybody had an excellent week. I hope everything has been flowing well for you. I hope you've been productive, and I hope you've been able to attack your goals and bring them to their knees. Let's get it. So my name is Jonathan Jones. I'm the host of the Speak Your Success podcast. I'm a serial entrepreneur, best-selling author, as well as TEDx speaker. And on the Speak Your Success podcast, if this is your first time rocking with us, or if you've been rocking with us before, here we enjoy giving tangible application to allow you to take what we share, implement it into your life, implement it into your business, providing you self-help strategies to ultimately lead you to living your best life and being your best self. And today, the topic of this episode is 21 questions. And specifically, I put out a post probably about a couple of weeks ago, and I asked, what do you want to know from me? If you can ask me any question, what do you want to know? So I put that post out there, reached out to some people via Twitter, DMs, Facebook, all that good stuff, because I wanted to make sure I had good content, wanted to make sure that I added value through this Q&A portion. And now there was an overwhelming response. We probably had about 30 questions, but I've narrowed it down to about 27. So forgive me. And now we're gonna go ahead and just attack it, and we're gonna go ahead and get into it. But before we do that, I want to do the review of the week, the Apple review of the week. And this review came from T_K_007. And they went on to say, Jones delivers a bite size of common sense for the discerning millennial and anyone willing to hear it. He is genuine, informative, and easy to listen to. Great work. We appreciate you tuning in, T_K_007. Keep on rocking with us. And if you would like the chance to be the Apple review of the week, we just encourage you to go on to the Purple Podcast app and just pull it up and type in Speak Your Success, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and it says write a review. Click that button, write a helpful review, and then you have a chance to be the review of the week. And now I'm just going to go ahead and just kick it off. The first question somebody wants to know, they said, we want to know how you got started. Like, what's your background? And if depending on which way we decide to take this question, but honestly, I got started just understanding that I always had a call for leadership in my life. However, I never wanted to respond to it. I always ran away from leadership. I never desired to be in a position to lead until I realized that I couldn't run from leading anymore. Then I ended up going to school, getting my bachelor's in psychology, and then roughly after that time, then I'm a year away from getting my master's currently now. So in regards to where I got started was, just always wanting to encourage others, although I never wanted the responsibility of leading them. And then in addition to that, then I, went to school, got the psychology degree, and now I'm utilizing that just in my everyday life and communication. Thank you for that question. Excellent. We're going to just keep on moving down. Question number 2. What keeps you going and motivated daily? Well, personally, I'm driven. I'm just driven going throughout the day, sharing a message, because I'm at a point now in my life where I realize that I don't want to be my biggest regret. And understanding that I have to continue to grow and I have to continue to move forward. And granted, of course, there's some days I don't feel like doing anything. There's some days I'm not the Monday motivation Jonathan. There's some days I roll out the bed and I just want to just sleep. But understanding that if I don't share my message, and if my message potentially could be the prescription for someone else's pain, then I'm doing them a disservice, and I'm also not paying my dues to the earth. I'm not paying my respects to God, who gave me the gift that he gave me. So ultimately, that's what keeps me motivated daily, is pouring into other individuals, encouraging them, and seeing them be able to live their best lives. Students, millennials, all alike, because I believe everyone has a unique gift, and I believe everyone has a special purpose and a call in their life. And for that reason, I like to speak to that gift. I like to speak to that calling and encourage people to pursue that within their lives. Number 3, what's the best and our most rewarding part about being Jonathan Jones? The best part about me would be having the opportunity to speak to other individuals and potentially seeing them, draw from within their self, challenging them to self-reflect and challenging them to take a moment to where they can utilize self-discovery and to where they can realize their gifts. Not saying that my message is that great or not saying that I'm that phenomenal of a speaker, but I just believe that if I'm in the position to share a word and then that word might just spark something in an individual's brain, and then once that individual says, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do, and then they begin to strive and they begin to take that, what they realized and then apply it into their life. That's the best part about speaking. That's the best part about me being who I am. Just being in position to serve others to help them find their gift and find their calling. We're going to keep on moving. I'm not sure how you all feel about the flow of this, but we're just going to keep on just doing this like this. Anyway, so number 4, how did you come up with the idea for your book? So those of you who might not know, the title of my book is Process 14 Surprisingly Simple Behaviors to Skyrocket Millennials to Success. And the idea of my book came about because one day my father really challenged me. He said, son, you have a message. Son, you have a story. Somebody needs to hear your story. And I was like, Dad, nah, fam, I don't really think so. I really don't think that there's much I can share right now. I can't really think of who would listen to me at this point in my life because, I was probably 24, 25 at that time. And I was like, Dad, nah, I don't really have anything to share. But after we went back and forth, then, I took some time and my dad continued to challenge me. And from that point, then I hired my dad. And after hiring him, that's when he taught me the best lesson ever. And that was to invest in yourself. I hired my dad. I paid my dad $5,000. And then ultimately, he helped me work through the publishing process. And after that, then my book became an Amazon bestseller just due to the tremendous support of the people in my community, the people around me. And then, that's when that's where we are now. After, that platform was built, now we've been operating off that. So I came up with the book idea because my father coached me through the process, and he coached me on how to set the book up to where I can add more value to people and to ultimately where I can pour into people's lives. Great questions thus far. These are some excellent questions. These are some really, really excellent questions. Number 5, what are some tips you would give to someone who is interested in writing a book? Well, the first tip I would give would say don't write your book with yourself in mind, because you might be an amazing individual, but there's not a lot of people who want to hear your story if they don't hear, one, how you pulled yourself through it. In addition to that, they don't want to hear your story if they can't see themselves in your shoes, or if they can't see themselves in your shoes. And if there's no relatability there, people could care less about you if they can't take anything or can't glean anything from that. Number 2, I would say just writing your book as an individual who wants to just get all the glory for writing the book and get all the accolades for writing a book. That might not be the best way to write your book. I would encourage you to take time and set your book up in a way to where it would serve and support other people. The reason I wrote my book and how my book is set up is it's set up to provide the individual with the tool of self-reflection. And I say that specifically because as you read through my book, at the end of each chapter, I have writing prompts that challenge you to self-reflect, and then it applies directly to the individual who is reading the book, directly to the individual who's answering the questions in the book. So those would be 2 steps that I would say. And the last one would be, I would say, hire a coach. Hire a coach to walk you through the process of writing a book. Hire a coach just to make sure that you don't leave anything important out of the book, like copyright, the legal side of things. There's so many different factors. To make sure you write your book right, I would definitely say hire a coach, and ultimately don't write your book with yourself in mind. set the book up to where you can add value to others, and ultimately to where you can pour into their lives. Number 6. If you could spend a day with 3 people, alive or dead, who would you choose? You can't say Jesus, LOL. That's funny. Okay, who would I choose? 3 people that I would choose to spend a day with. The first person would be Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett, just because the actions that he takes, how he just truly calculates each decision before he makes it business-wise, and just seeing the way he operates as far as strategy. So he would be a key player that I would want to follow. The next would be Inky Johnson, because he personally is my favorite speaker. He is a phenomenal speaker with a powerful story. And just to see how he operates day to day, just to see, how he practices or hones his craft, how he addresses people, because I've learned a lot from him thus far, just watching him from afar. But I would just want an in-depth look to see how he handles himself, how he carries himself on a daily basis. And then the last individual would be none other than the Bishop, T.D. Jakes. And I would want to follow T.D. Jakes around because he understands entrepreneurship. And he appears to manage his time extremely well. If you know anything about Bishop T.D. Jakes, he has he has T.D. Jakes Ministries. He has his own suit line. He has a movie company or a movie production company, and the list goes on and on and on. He has a lot of things that he works on or is working on, and I would definitely want to learn just from him to see how he operates and see what a day in his life looks like. Number 7. Who would you say was the biggest influence of your biggest role model in your entrepreneurship journey? Who was the biggest influence? This might be kind of cliche, but I'd have to say my mom and my dad, simply because I remember growing up, I witnessed, my brother and I witnessed my father start a lawn mowing company, start a lawn mowing business. And this was when we were at a very young age. And we would always hop on the lawnmower and ride on the lawnmower with him or with my uncle. So we were introduced to entrepreneurship at a young age. And even from there, my mother also had her own business to where she would do taxes and she would file other people's taxes for them. So seeing both of those individuals in my life, starting their own businesses, having their own businesses alongside of having other jobs, I think that really spoke to the entrepreneurial spirit within me, and which encouraged me to be determined pursuing my entrepreneurial journey, which also encouraged me to develop persistence, also challenged me to develop discipline and character alike. So my mom and my dad would be my biggest influences in my entrepreneurship journey thus far. For fun, what's your favorite music to listen to when getting motivated? That's a great question. That's a really great question. I mean, I have a Get 'Em Live mix on my phone, and I have a few different random artists that are on there. Have to have a little bit of Rick Ross, have a little bit of Young Jeezy, the old Jeezy, not the new Young Jeezy, because we don't know him, but the old Trap or Die Young Jeezy. And there's another gentleman by the name of Toby Nwigwe, and that's from my Atlanta people. I believe he's from Atlanta. No. He's not from Atlanta. He's not from Atlanta. He's from Houston. He's from the SWAT, Southwest A-Leaf, Texas. But from my Atlanta people, old Trillville and 2 Chainz. Those are just some people. I mean, that list is not exhaustive, but it just all depends, because sometimes, working out, I need that push. I need something loud in my ears, some bass beating, just to get me going. Sometimes, because working out really challenges you to be consistent. It really challenges you ultimately to push yourself. And sometimes I don't feel it, because I'm no longer a college athlete and I'm no longer the individual trying to make the team, or, that doesn't matter anymore, because I'm just working out to get the cardio. Like the old dudes who say at the gym, like, man, you're not really playing, man. I'm just out here on the floor for the cardio. I'm just trying to get them up. Man, nobody want to hear that. We trying to win the game. Forget your cardio, bruh. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna have to put I'm gonna put a beat on over this, because Okay, anyway. So, number 9, we're moving down the list. We're like halfway there. Do you have a goal-setting system? Do I have a goal-setting system? No, not really. The goal-setting system I once did have was a life plan. Michael Hyatt talks about this in his book called Living Forward, I believe, or Moving Forward. It's one of those two. And he talks about the importance of a life plan, of mapping out what you want to do in your life. And by way of you mapping out what you want to do, as well as by mapping out what your priorities are, this helps you set up the goals for your life ultimately. So that was something I did probably last year or a couple years ago. And I'm going to get back to doing that. I actually started re-listening to the audio version of that book, because I realized that the things that I did write down, like wanting to do a TED Talk, wanting to go through this personal development course, wanting to hire a coach, these are things I listed off, and then they all have come to fruition. So therefore, I believe that was effective. So I need to go back to watering what works, as my coach always says. So that would be what I would suggest is the life plan strategy, mapping out what you want to accomplish, in addition to mapping out your priorities. So then if there ever comes a time where you get an opportunity to take on an amazing job or amazing project, but then it's like the same week of a family reunion, then you're like, wait a minute, my priorities don't line up with this. I shouldn't take this opportunity right now, even though I want to, but that's not, I'm supposed to be with my family right now, and another opportunity will come. So the life plan has been extremely effective for me. Next, number 10. Are there any time management techniques that you use? Yes, there is one that I actually utilize. And this particular time management strategy, this one, I would not say, I would say this one's a little unorthodox maybe. But when it comes to time management, I utilize the timer on my phone or now on my watch. And for instance, I say I'm going to read for 10 minutes. I'll set a countdown timer for 10 minutes on my phone, and then I just begin to read, because that way it allows me to block out everything else and eliminate distractions, because I'm so focused on reading for that amount of time. And I don't want to allow myself to do anything else, because then I'll cut into my 10 minutes. So that's one thing I utilize often, just to make sure that I stay on task as far as reading. Typically it's for reading, but other times I use it for maybe preparing a presentation, or maybe I do it when I'm editing videos. So then when that alarm sounds, like, oh man, dang, I have to become more conscious of my time just by doing it that way. Okay? I hope that answers your question. And to any of you, if there's a question that you asked and I didn't answer it the way that you were looking for, or maybe I answered it out of the context that you asked it, please shoot me a DM at SYS Podcast on Twitter. SYS Podcast 1 on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. Send us a message if I didn't answer the question correctly or to your liking, and then we can hash it out. We can talk about it. Then we further can unpack it maybe on another episode. Because I feel this is dope, and if this is beneficial to you all as far as answering the questions, let me know, and then maybe we can set up something to do like a Facebook Live situation, and I can pull somebody on and just get them to interview me, and that way it won't be me asking myself the questions. But I mean, it's cool. Whatever works for you all. Please just let me know. What's the difference between passion and purpose? Drops mic. What's the difference between passion and purpose? Okay. I actually had to look up the answer for this one. I'm not even going to lie. Because this one, I was torn between. I was like, ooh, passion and purpose. That is a really good question. But the answer I found, I definitely agree with. And the answer said, passion is a strong and barely controllable emotion. It's one thing that we know about feeling. It's one thing that we know about feelings. They make us have these bubbly emotions. But if you take no action, it just takes that. If no action is taken, then that's exactly all they are. It's just a bubbly emotion, a feeling. However, your purpose is the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. My God, that's a powerful answer. So I hope that answers your question. I feel like that's pretty cut and dry. I feel like that's pretty straightforward as far as what's the passion versus the purpose. even though I know sometimes they might be used interchangeably depending on who's talking and depending on what the topic is. So I hope that definitely answers your question. If it doesn't, once again, just shoot me a DM, shoot me a message so we can definitely make sure that we hash that out and get you the correct information. Number 12, can you name a time in your life where you were financially backed into a wall, and how did you find the solution? Well, there's definitely a couple of times in my life where I was backed into a wall financially. One of the most relevant, I would say, was like right when I was fresh out of college. I had my degree. I thought I was good. I thought I had a job lined up. I thought I was going to win. I thought the world was just going to open up and I was going to see the heavens. And then Jesus was going to say, yes, you did it. You win. Game over. Not the way it happened at all. So ultimately, I couldn't find a job, couldn't get hired. And then I had to take on an inventory job, which I was like, fam, this is terrible. I hate this job. So terrible. And then after I took that because I really needed to make money. And then after doing that, I was like, man, I really can't do this anymore. Then I took on a nonprofit job where now I was creating more of an impact, but still the income wasn't what I was desiring to make. And just like you said, like when I got back into a corner, how did I find the solution? I found the solution because I kept trying different things. I kept trying different jobs. I kept trying to see what potentially could work for me, what potentially would work for me, and where I felt comfortable. And a lot of these places, I didn't necessarily enjoy doing the job, but I understood that it was a season. I understood that as I was doing this job, I could be saving money. As I was doing this job, I could be building relationships. As I was doing this job, I would be adding on some additional credentials to my resume that I might later need. So that was one thing. That was one area I really saw to be effective, adding on those credentials. Because some jobs, they expect you to have specific credentials. Other jobs, they could care less. But some people need to see those credentials. So that's what I was doing in that time. Did you seek help from others? Yes. Yes, I did seek help from others. While I was at one job, which was the nonprofit, I probably was in my boss's office every day. And I just sat there and I would just talk with him and I would just ask questions, always just asking for his insight, always having conversations with him just to find out more information, trying to see what relationships would be beneficial for me to have as he was trying to figure out who would be good people to introduce me to. And as he was trying to help me also find what I was good at, he was trying to help me find my passion. He was trying to help me identify what potentially my purpose could be. But ultimately, I came to that point by working with him and asking questions and trying a lot of different things, getting up and speaking in front of people, having to do presentations, working at the nonprofit, being a program manager, doing after school program and teaching. And I did all these things. And ultimately, this is what helped me identify what I was made to do. And then you also said, did I get an extra job? Yes, I did get an extra job. I just want to share that. There are some times where you might not be in the position that you necessarily want to be in, or you might not be doing what you want to do. However, in the other episode, I think it was like 2 episodes back, I talked about sacrifice before success. And understanding that sometimes we do have to make a sacrifice. We might have to sacrifice some time because they say either you have time or you have money. Typically, they say people don't have both. But if you have the time, then that's when you should, do the research and see what you like to do, see what you enjoy doing, find out what that thing is that if you didn't get a check for this, you would still love it and you would still be perfectly fine doing exactly what this thing is. And then understanding that, then you might have to work another job just in the meantime, between time, because the other thing might not be paying you as much as you desire. But as you're taking the time to learn, because you have a little bit extra time, take that time to learn and see how you can monetize that passion. See how you can put yourself in a position to meet a need and then provide that service for those individuals who are seeking that, whatever it might be, right? Okay. The next question is, if I love what I do, but I'm not making the money I want, What would be your advice on that? I found my passion, but I'm not getting paid enough. What's your perspective on that? Golly, I think I just answered that without reading this question. But I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. Just finding, like, if you already found what you love, then I say really milk that thing. Continue to do what you love. But if you need some additional income, then you begin to look at something else that you're good at. Maybe you're good at graphics, or maybe you have a camera and you do photography on the weekends. Then maybe pick that up as something that you can do just specifically to bring in income to where you can fund your dream on the back end. For instance, for me, prime example. So I work with colleges, I work with universities, and I go and speak. And I get paid to speak, as well as I sell my books also. But I'm not in the position right now to where that's the only thing I do. Do I just stand up and speak, I get the check, and that's taking care of my expenses for the year. So now I also work for my father. I'm the director of author success for Publish Me Now University, and I work with him throughout the week. In addition to on the weekends, I go out and I Uber. I drive for Uber Friday nights, Saturday nights, because sometimes we just have to continue to put in the work, and then if we keep swinging at that tree, eventually it will fall. Eventually we're going to crack. Eventually we're going to break through. But that only happens when you continue to put in the work and continue to put in the effort. So if you ask me what's my perspective, that's what I would say. Just continue to do what you love, but also just find a way to bring in revenue and monetize something, or create additional service or something like that. Because ultimately, if that's what you desire to do with your life, then you'll find a way to where you can continue to do that with your life if you want to do it bad enough. Okay, cool. How do you handle being financially limited with multi-million-dollar aspirations? Well, just as I said before, I think I answered this one also. It's from a perspective of, if you don't have time, then you have money. That's what I said before, and I still believe that as well. So you have to begin to make a dollar stretch. Let's talk podcast, for example. Let's make it real tangible. So for me, starting my podcast, I did not have a podcast budget. I did not know it cost this much to have a podcast. Honestly, I didn't know it required a monthly fee. I didn't know that you needed a hosting site. I didn't know that you needed a microphone. I didn't know that you needed a pop filter. I didn't know that you needed storage space to upload this content, okay? And then going from there, I began to realize that, wow, okay, so now I have to be extremely effective because I didn't have a promotional budget or a marketing budget. So what did I do? I then began to sit down and think. I said, okay, well, if I don't have money to market, how will I get the podcast out? From that point, I began to realize that I know how to DM people, and I have Instagram. So then I began to DM people on Instagram saying, hey, check out this episode. Hey, listen to this episode of the podcast. Hey, check out this. Then I began to text out the link to people because I didn't have the money to do a podcast budget, but I did have the time to send out Instagram messages to get people to take the time and listen to the podcast. And that's the same thing I would say with if you're financially limited. I would just encourage you to take time and go meet different individuals who you want to be mentored by, who might not be in your industry, but sit down and get some tangible insight from them. Take the time to read books. Take the time to do some research on YouTube and see what you can glean from individuals who are in the field that you desire to be in. Because, ultimately, people who have multi-million-dollar aspirations, typically they didn't start off with multi-million-dollar budget. They took what they had, they made it work, and then they stretched it. I'll give you one more example. For instance, like me, for when I first started selling my books, in order to purchase books, it cost a little bit of money, okay? So I would order my books. I probably would order like 15 the first batch. I would sell those books. Boom, 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 sell 15. I would take that money, and then I would re-up. And by re-ing up, I would be able to order more books. So then I would get, 30 books, sell those books, get it back, and then re-up and order a higher amount based on the money that I spent to order the other batch. But ultimately, it's just reinvesting, reinvesting into your business, reinvesting into your personal brand, reinvesting into what it is that you desire to have, reinvesting into your nonprofit. And if it's reinvesting by financially, or if it's reinvesting by taking the time to pour into your personal development, that's what really matters, because you have to invest in your business. If you don't invest in your business, you can't expect anybody to invest in your products or anything like that. Okay. Let's keep on rolling. How does a person tap into their potential if they're limited with their resources? I feel like I answered that one too. My goodness. Okay, so you just do everything that you can at the level that you're currently at, right? So if let's go with the work example. If somebody's working at a job, say you're the secretary, but ultimately you want to be able to move up and you want a higher job, then you will continue to do your secretarial duties, but ultimately you'll begin to tell your boss, hey, well, do you mind if I work on this project? Do you mind if I have my hands in on this? Then you'll begin to experience things at a higher level while you're already mastering the level that you were currently at, because you've mastered the level of secretarial duties, and then you're showing them that you can raise the ceiling on your own potential. And then by doing that, I think that ultimately provides you with a higher level of resources, because now you're becoming more experienced, more so than just the field that you were in before, but ultimately it's in the next level of a field because you're doing different things and different tasks. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But also, outside of that, I have one more tangible piece on that. And then also, this is a tough pill to swallow, but you have to begin to look at your budget. Right? You have to look at and see where you're spending money at currently. And, if it's not benefiting you long term, then you might have to sacrifice on some outings of going out. You might have to sacrifice on not getting drinks with the girls or with the guys as often as you're doing, because you have limited resources. And being an entrepreneur and having limited resources, money needs to go where it needs to go. It might need to be invested in you purchasing a camera versus you having a cameraman. It might need to be invested in you paying to get some coaching so that they can provide you with insight to help you book speaking engagements, to help you book different things like that, versus you going out to eat. Because going out to eat, yes, it's going to be tasty that night. Yes, it's going to be delicious, but it's not going to sustain you long term like wisdom and knowledge and information will and can. Cool. I hope this is adding value to you all. If it is, please shoot us a tweet at SYSP on Twitter, or feel free to just mention us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at SYS Podcast 1. Okay? Thank you. What's your advice on the waiting part? I feel discouraged oftentimes, and sometimes I just don't know what to do. I understand how prayer works, but what do you do when you hear nothing? People always say, just pray about it. Well, I have, and nothing. Have you been in a situation like that? Yes, I have. The thing that I always like to look at when people tell us to pray and all that, I mean, I understand prayer and I understand prayer works. However, in the Bible, if you're spiritual, if you are an individual of faith, that in my spiritual book, from my book of faith, it says faith without works is dead. So understanding that the work part must come in hand. You pray because you have faith. You pray because you believe that God can create opportunities. You pray because you know that He will create you opportunity. But if you have an opportunity and you haven't done the work that will afford you that opportunity, or you haven't done the work that gives you the experience to be able to take on that opportunity, then you won't be sufficient for that job, for that title, et cetera, et cetera. So my perspective on it is, if you're currently working, then continue to work and continue to press forward and continue to do what you're doing. Because while you're working, a lot of times you come across opportunities because you're working. While you're working, people see you because you're working. If you're out networking, you connect with people. Oftentimes you brush shoulders with some people that you might have never met before. However, you end up getting to talk with them and getting to communicate with them because you were in position. And ultimately, you were in position because you're out doing the work. So the answer to that is, I say do the work. You have to continue to work. You have to work when nobody sees you. You have to work in the dark. You have to work sometimes overnight. You have to lose some sleep nights. I'm not saying just stay up all the time, because that's not healthy. I've done that, and the next day I took an L because I slept for like 6 hours during the day. However, I would just encourage you to work. Put the prayer up, but then also put some work down. Let's get it. Tell me about your first public speaking gig. First time I spoke in front of an audience, I was extremely nervous. Walked up to the podium. The night before, I practiced. And it was just me reading a scripture and then me saying a prayer. But one thing that was the plot twist, the lady who was the coordinator of this event, she didn't know I was speaking because my boss was supposed to go. And I said, well, you want me to tell her? He said, no, just show up and tell her when you get there. Because my boss knew that if I told her, that she would have canceled the whole thing, and he wanted me to have this opportunity. So therefore, I stepped up to the podium. My hands are sweaty. My palms are sweaty. Knees weak. Mom spaghetti. The vomit's on his shoulders already. Mom, but yeah, he's nervous. All that, right? The M&M 8 Mile, all that was happening. And then I stepped up into the podium. And I'm about 6'5". So the first thing I look down and say, oh man, this might get short. Everybody laughs. It gets silent. Now I'm a little bit relaxed. And then I proceed to do the prayer, and I proceed to say the scriptures. And from that point, I was able to have a sense of peace. And I'm only assuming it's because of the fact that I had them laugh first. So that was my first speaking engagement experience. However, I have been nervous at many other ones. Sometimes I couldn't even control the nerves. I don't even know where they came from. But, that was how that went for me. What's your number one dress for success tip? You can never be overdressed. And I say that because typically if you're the only individual who's overdressed, then you stand out. And when you stand out, a lot of times people want to ask you, what do you do? Or who are you? And all these different type questions, because people have asked me stuff like that when I would be overdressed sometimes. And I'll say, man, I got on too much clothes. Why? Oh. But ultimately, I had conversations with people, and it opened some doors. And now I have good relationships with some of these people, all because I was just overdressed. So that would be my number one dress for success tip. You can never be overdressed. Somebody said that they would like to be a guest on the podcast. How can they go about doing that? Well, first, I appreciate you taking the time to listen. And I appreciate everybody who's actually reached out and wanted to see about being a guest on the Speak Your Success podcast. We definitely appreciate it. But currently, we're not taking guests on the show. But when we do begin to take guests, I will definitely open it up to where we allow you to submit why you would like to be on the show and submit maybe a potential topic that you would like to discuss. And then we can go from there. But right now, we're currently not taking on guests. Once we do, you all will be the first to know. Yes. What's your workout regimen like? Oh, man. Workout regimen is non-existent, honestly. I started doing a Jillian Michaels 20-minute workout. Laugh if you want to. Please laugh. But on the video, she says, do you feel the burn? Are you starting to get a sweat? Because I hope you are about, well, she doesn't say I hope you're about to die. She says you should feel like you're about to die. And she looks in the camera, and it's almost like she's laughing at you. But I've taken on that challenge of doing the Jillian Michaels 20-minute shred, and that bad boy is intense. I'm not even going to lie. I can't even finish it because that's how intense it is. Jillian Michaels is intense, and that's all I'm going to say about her. But that's my workout regimen currently, and I'm trying, scratch that, I'm going to consistently work out, at least if I do some curls or some crunches, just to make sure that I stay toned. Next, we have the question, was it easier or harder than you thought to have the opportunity to do a TED Talk? Well, honestly, the first time I tried, went in, got rejected. And honestly, that hurt my pride a little bit because, then I had to go back to doing the work, speaking at multiple schools, seeing where I can add value to other schools, elementary schools, middle schools, wherever I had the opportunity. And then I'm not sure if the young lady happened to be following me or if she just realized that I was doing more work by way of word of mouth. I'm not even sure. But then I received an email about a year or so later. And this was after I was sending her emails back and forth and back and forth. I kept emailing her. She never hit me back. And then a year later, she sent me an email and asked, would I be interested in doing the TEDx presentation? And then, looking at it like that, I guess it was easier, even though I got rejected initially. But I'm just going to say I guess it was easier because I still got the opportunity to actually present on the TEDx stage on that red circle, because I wasn't focusing on getting that TEDx presentation at that time. I was just focusing on going in, adding value, and just presenting to those schools. And then she reached back out to me. So I was like, dope. I'm with it. Next, what things about a person lets you know that they're about business? I think that's a great question, because there's a lot of people now in these days that always want to meet up for coffee, and they might have ulterior motives, or they just want to meet up with you because they like you or whatever it might be. I would say, if a person's about business, if they're more so about actions as opposed to talking, if they're more in that spot where they're saying less but they're doing more, I think that shows that they're more about business than about the talk, because they're actually putting skin in the game. We're working down these questions. We probably have about 4 more questions. So bear with us. Just ride it out with us. We're almost out of the question piece. And this might be this is not going to be an hour. This is not going to be our first hour episode. We're not going to do that. But as we keep on rolling, what drives you day in and day out? I feel that the biggest driving force for me will be looking at the younger generation and seeing that these individuals have the ability to construct the lifestyle that they desire for their lives. And if it be, little Johnny going off to college, or if it be little Sally finding a trade or a skill that he or she cultivates, and then ultimately they can set themselves up for success, that's what drives me. Just providing the tools to them and just giving them the opportunity to be exposed to a different lifestyle that they might have not seen otherwise. So that would definitely be what drives me on a day-to-day basis, because there's so much youth out here and there's so much potential. But sometimes we need to activate that potential and help them spark and see their gifting on their lives. Next question. Who's one of your greatest mentors and why? The story I always make reference to about when I used to work for the nonprofit, and my boss was Dr. Daniel Prescott. And he would have to be one of the most influential mentors that I've had in my whole life, specifically because he challenged me to think. He put me in a position to make mistakes and to grow, and ultimately he set me up to where I honestly would earn work experience, not just coasting through, but to where I had to make big-time decisions. I had to deal with big-time budgets. I had to have to deal with people when their checks weren't ready. He helped me learn how to be comfortable under pressure and always challenged me to raise the standard for my life, while showing me what it meant to be a true team player, and also showing me what leadership looked like. So Dr. Daniel Prescott, I thank you for that, for the challenge, for the push, even though it was like you dragged me through hell at times. However, I'm grateful because now I'm a better man because of it. So I thank you, sir. When was the biggest time of transformation through Christ for you? The biggest time of transformation for Jesus in my life would be when I went through that 12-step biblical recovery program I make mention about, which was a year-long program. And it was a year-long and some change for me. But during this time, I completed this coursework with a group of about 12 men, and we began to share our struggles every Monday night. We'd sit in a circle for about a year and a half. And then I just was getting out of a relationship at that time, and I began to learn so much about myself. I began to learn what it looks like to be vulnerable. I began to see what it looks like to be in front of men and share emotions in front of men and be open with it and be okay with it. So I think that was one of the biggest transformations of Christ in my life, seeing the love of Jesus being put in the form of through community, and being put through the form of seeing it through men, seeing men love well. So that was definitely huge for me going through that process. And next question. What changes or things made up the transformation? My bad habits. I used to have some really bad habits: going out, getting drunk, staying out, partying all night, me being promiscuous, and ultimately, what took place through that transformation was God changing my heart to love people instead of manipulating them for my own benefit. He also began to show me to love people and to not take them for granted. So that was really big for me through that time, and my life being completely changed around because I no longer had the desire to be promiscuous, but me ultimately having a lifestyle altering moment going through that 12-step biblical recovery program. So I'm eternally grateful for that. And this is the final question for the Q&A. The final question, and this question was, what's the best way to determine your speaking fee? I don't think I'm charging enough, but I don't want to price myself out of opportunities either. I would say you look at your credentials that you have, and then looking at your credentials in conjunction with what services they're asking you to do. If they're asking you to do a workshop, if they're asking you to do a keynote or a panel or an all-day seminar, half-day seminar, is it in-state, out-of-state? There's a lot of different factors at hand there to account for. However, you want to see what their budget looks like. And then depending on their budget, you can tell them, usually I charge this much, but however, for you, I'll be willing to charge X amount of dollars. That way you're not pricing yourself out of the opportunity, and that way also you allow yourself to have more opportunity and build that relationship, build that business relationship there. Friends, thank you so much for submitting all of these questions. I hope this added value to you in some way, shape, or form. We're going to just give a quick shout out to everybody I'm just going to post it up on the Instagram post for all the people who sent in questions and all the people who participated. So we're very grateful for each and every one of you. Just want to hit on these two last pieces as we're going to go ahead and close out the show. First thing, if you're not following us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, be sure to follow us at SYS Podcast 1 or use the hashtag SYSP. And if you want to hear me unpack a certain topic, please send me a DM, send me a message, send me a tweet to any of those handles, SYS Podcast 1. And then we'll be sure to address that for you. And in our newest segment, we have the SYS Listens, and that's the Speak Your Success Listens. These are podcasts that I've been listening to throughout the week. One podcast that I've been listening throughout the week is TENandTWO podcast. And this week, in their episode, they were discussing supporting black businesses. Why should we support black businesses? And if they're not performing at the highest level, how do we get them to do so? Do we just stop shopping with them, stop spending our money with them? Or do we begin to sit and have a conversation and tell them why we're not satisfied with their services, right? That was a great episode. That had Nmandi and that had Blank on that episode. But they typically have three hosts. They have Nmandi, they have Blank, and they have Miss Alexia. But I love their energy, and I love just what each of them represents individually. They are black excellence. Next, we have Don't Take It Personal, and their hosts are Mr. J. Will and Mr. Hollywood Cash. And they were talking on their episode that they launched this week. They had Eridon on the episode, who's formerly known as Tunk if you've been in the Dallas music scene, and they just unpack different topics and they break down really what hip hop is. Every episode, I learned so much from each and every one of them, and I would encourage you to go check out that episode. They have great guests on their show. They have great personality. I always laugh, and I always just really enjoy their show from a real, genuine place. That's Don't Take It Personal. Don't Take It Personal. And the last podcast that we want to recognize this week, that's Unspoken Words, episode 5 by Becky with the good hair. Yeah, Becky with the good hair. Because her podcast is one I really can appreciate because she shares poetry on the podcast. She shares her feelings and just really addresses things from a really vulnerable perspective. I definitely appreciate Becky's podcast, and Becky loves everybody. Every time I see her, I always see her networking. She's always connecting with people. She always is encouraging people. So Becky, keep doing what you're doing, and you do have good hair. Hey. And of course, this segment is the favorite segment always. This segment is the winner circle of the week. In this segment, we like to recognize an individual who is currently just ripping up the runway, just tearing it up in their city or wherever they may be. And this individual actually attended his event last night, and his event was entitled, Who Do You Cosign? And this gentleman that we're going to welcome into the winner circle this week, he is none other than Mr. KG Graham. KG is the CEO and the founder of Cosign Media and Cosign Magazine. If you've never been out to an event in Dallas, or if you have ever been to an event in Dallas and you haven't seen KG, then honestly you're just in the wrong places, because he's an influencer, and since I've known him, he's been taking major strides from creating a space for Cosign to not only be known in Dallas but also Atlanta, LA, New York. He's everywhere. He's putting in some serious work. If you want to be real, he's just putting in some serious work. But he always has great events where he utilizes his platform to ultimately provide resources for others and to help them to utilize the platform to influence their brand, to further increase their exposure. And when my book first dropped and I opened up the box, KG was one of the first individuals who bought a copy of Process when I first released my book, because KG not only is just doing things in the city, but he's very active, and he also supports in the city. He's not one of those people who says, support me, but he supports others just through action and through deed. And then in turn, that's why his events are always so successful, because people know what he's doing and they know he supports. So therefore, they always support him. So I just want to say thanks for being dope, KG. You already know anytime I have the ability to come out to one of your events, I'm there without a doubt. And one more time, let's give it up for our winner circle of the week, the founder and CEO of Cosign Magazine and Cosign Media, Mr. KG Graham. All right. And the quote of the week actually comes from our winner circle of the week. I saw KG actually put this up one time he was preparing for a networking event. I once saw him say, your net worth is determined by your network. Yes, your net worth is determined by your network. And I mean, that's just as real as it is, because relationships are the new currency. I've heard it said earlier this week. So get you some. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close it out. We didn't make it to an hour. I'm grateful, and I'm about to get out of here because, we're probably not going to have an episode this long ever again. But let's move on. If you would like to leave us a review and you would want to potentially be the Apple review of the week, once again, just go to that purple podcast app, type in Speak Your Success, scroll all the way down to the bottom after you pass all the episodes, and click Write a Review. And then you have a chance to potentially be the Winner Circle Review of the Week. And friends, if you would like to give us feedback, if you would like us to cover a topic, feel free to shoot me an email to jonathan@jonathanjonespeaks.com. And once again, if you'd like any more information on me, just go to the website, jonathanjonespeaks.com. Friends, as you know how we close it out every time, say it with me like you believe it. Speak your success, believe in your greatness, and continue to create the life and business of your dreams. Why would you want to live any other way?